Okay, this is a introduction to the world of Entropia or Anthropia or Entropia. They different areas and different regions will say it differently. It is a singular island, maybe the size of Australia, but this is the entirety of the world. We'll go through some key areas. Um, The first would be that there is this structure off the eastern coast. Um, it's called the Warden, but most people don't know that because most people can't even see it. Um, Even though it's this large structure and ships maneuver around it, most individuals, if you said, "Hey, look at that structure out there," um, they don't see it. Um, it is there. It is very um, difficult to get to. If you try to take a ship out to it, it always seems that you have a reason to turn around. Another area that is of import is the wilds. The wilds are called the wilds because most people do not venture into them. There are ancient structures out in the wilds that are visible, that are of interest to people. There are also resources that are of interest to people, but nobody wants to go into those areas. Only the few brave will actually venture into the outskirts of the wilds, and that's because well, not only are there just giant, massive floating rocks called lapis stones, but these rocks um, are good for an indicator of when a anti-magic storm has moved through the wilds. These storms are unpredictable; they can't be seen other than when these rocks will just drop out of the sky, and during that time, there is no magic that can be cast. And because this the society of Entropia, their heroes and their um, royalty have all been magic users going into the wilds and having to confront the dangers that are there is pretty wild. Um, but these lapis stones um, were investigated by one of the royal families, and they discovered something interesting in the formation of these rocks, that when they were struck with lightning, um, that a crystallization would form sometimes in the rocks. And there was the founder of the Tapas family that named the rocks the Lapis, which was after his grandfather, but he took on the name Tapas. Um, he studied these rocks. He was one of the first that was melding a kind of science with magic, but he wanted to be able to understand the formation of the strange formation of this world and um, how to interact with it with magic. And so he would cast, seeing that they interacted with lightning, attempted to cast uh, a lightning spell at the lapis stones to try to create this tapas crystal, is what he called it. Um, and that didn't really work. But when mixing different chemicals and introducing that to the crystal, found out that although the spell of lightning had done nothing, um, the tapas crystal, when interacted with a certain compound in a certain environment, released the spell that had been cast into the crystal. And this created a technological revolution in the world of Aentropia as the advent of both the usage of these floating rocks and these tapas crystals that could be used for storing now had a huge variety of uses. Now, anyone who had one of these vials that were controlled by the Tapas family, but anybody that had them could cast a magic spell. All they had to do was get somebody to, um, you know, there was vendors that would sell any spell that you needed for varying prices, um, and they were stored inside of these vials, and all you had to do was pop the top, and it would provide that spell. And this grew, but it threatened the the current hierarchy uh, in Entropia, because for generations the four families, the Corvinaris, the Tapas, the Stonefelder, and the Windsor family, had always vied for power, and maneuvered, but it was a bloodline that um, resulted in who would be the next arbiter, who would be the top house, and who had the most power and influence. Each of these families had, and still has, sorry, has a university that they train their mages in. Um, However, one of the families um, did have a horrible instance where the entire family had been called together for a celebration of life for the matriarch of the family that had died several years prior, and in a devastating accident or a devastating attack, um, the entire family was wiped out. And the most prominent theory right now is that um, anti magic, some call them insurgents, some call them freedom fighters, had utilized invocation magic in tapas stones to essentially fireball the entire Corvinaris family. All that is known is that the uh, ruins of Raventree Manor still lie uh, um, open. There is no heir apparent that has come to light, and the area is said to be cursed. So all different kinds of tales around that, but uh, the loss of the Corvinaris family has created a lot of a schism in the world of technological innovation and the old ways of magic. And because things are progressing so rapidly, there is this, you can go from one town to another and it is completely different, um, with its level of modern looking type of uh, what's the accommodations, or what it looks like. So these four families of the magic families, they are the three are still the primary individuals in power, but this power to the people of everyone, even if you're not of a royal bloodline, being able to use magic is unbalancing the generations of peace that have happened. Um, there's also these tech tycoons. Some of them have organized themselves as families. Some of them as industries and corporations, and they're all having their various ways. So each of the magic families have their kind of core uh, school of magics that are most prominent for them. Obviously, the Tapas family was most uh, accepting of these new ways, just because they had been the pioneers of it. Um, and another technology that is kind of changing the face of Entropia is metallurgy, which is a ability to essentially cast anything in metal using any clay. Now, the more pure the clay, or the more um, less amount of impurities in the clay, you can get a stronger metal. But really, any dirt mixed with water, formed into a shape, and using the Danos lanterns that have a proprietary secret lens and light. Um, it's essentially the mending cantrip in a tapas crystal, and somehow, though, tweaked and modified, that instead of changing and reuniting broken pieces, it like alchemy changes the composition of the mud into a metal that is like, it's similar in um, in rigidity and form to like brass. It's a softer metal, so it can't be used for armor or weapons, but it can be used for anything else. And the ability to create something as hard as metal, or even um, as soft as a plastic with this lantern technology, it has changed the face of everything. And Robert Danos, and he runs it as a family, keeping the secrets within the family, um, but is revolutionizing. And there are crazy ideas that are now possible and capable with this ability for anybody to be a blacksmith as long as they have a Danos lantern. There's also Beso Industries. They specialize in airships and homunculi. You'll see them, especially in the larger cities. Um, these little winged droids moving back and forth, and large airships, both taking from old designs to the new designs that are revolutionized with metallurgy. Um, but both are in the skies. Never over the wilds, though. As you can imagine, if you are flying over the unforgiving area of the wilds, and suddenly an anti magic storm goes through and your ship just goes to the ground, that is not a means of travel that is possible in the wilds if anybody was dumb enough to go into the wilds. There is the Noble family. They have found uh, a stone that they call dragon stone, and it burns hotter than any oil. Um, and they were the Windsor family was known for their um, not only their particular brand of magic, but also their skill in creating craftsmen, blacksmithing craftsmen. And so there are natural adaptations that have started to take shape with having this very flammable powder, and the ability to work and construct with steel. Um, and that is continuing to grow and adapt. And maybe in the future they'll be combining the red stone, this dragon stone, with oil, and realizing that it burns much hotter, and that you don't need a tapa stone of create flame to power a an automaton um, vehicle that that something completely non-magical can actually uh, power an engine. Tusk Innovations, they were the first that offshoot from the Tapas family, and they have their most of the stuff that they're doing is not even known by the greater population. But they were the ones that were most affected by the Corvinaris family and this rumor that it was evocation magic that had created it, not a accident or there's strange rumors about what it is that um, ripped that house almost in two. But the use of evocation magic in Tapas crystals for weapons, for the ability to create automatons that can do more than just follow orders, but um, have their own creativity. And they're doing some pretty amazing things also with spider silk, but that's out near the wilds, and not a lot of people know about that. Um, but the wilds, they are called wild for a reason. The creatures that roam that area are um, you're going to want to be able to use magic to be able to confront them. And the growth of technology um, threatens the balance of power because of the resources that are available in those areas. Um, and that if the West can be conquered, then it's going to mean an entire change of Entropia. Because there are areas that um, look nicer, but can be just as dangerous. And there is obviously those resources that are the lifeblood of the changing face of Entropia. There are also ruins out in those areas that may hold fantastic mysteries. But getting there by airship is not going to be possible, and the technology yet does not exist to travel long distances, but it's on its way. So, where might your character be from? They could be from some mining town up in the north, or uh, a desperate town near the outskirts of the wilds. They could be in a fantastical, large city brimming with magic, where um, full plate armor looks a lot different, and people go to work on trams that hover in the air or in giant ships that are delivering cargo. Or perhaps it's a small, quiet village um, um, studying the mysteries of Mother's Peak and still practicing the old ways. Or one of the many um, druid tribes that are rumored to be able to live in the wilds by living in communion and balance um, with the raw natural energy that exists there, or in some hoity-toity uh, university town where magic is studied, or perhaps you um, fight the corporations and try to, uh, working for one of the magic families, trying to unveil their secrets. This isn't Shadowrun though, so I mean you're going to have to like invent computers first if you want to do hacking, but you might have just a tavern that all of the most seedy individuals come to, or the liveliest of acts, or you might be the last of a um, the last of a shining knight that rides just on a horse and uh, lives in a town that is fantastical and magical, and he might be a freaking air pirate, or fight air pirates for that matter. But there are so many possibilities in Entropia that you can let your imagination run wild, figure out where it is that you're from, Create a story not only for yourself but for the town as a whole. Things that you know that your character knows, or things that your character doesn't know that is in the environment around them. And just remember, though, that you have no idea what the hell that place is. Um, and you're pretty sure that you're crazy because you're the only one that sees it. The only one.